Welcome to the third and final episode of From Uncertainty to Opportunity, Resilient by Design, a special edition podcast. My name is Lana Gens, and I'm your host for this series. And to conclude it in today's episode, we'll look ahead to where the logistics industry is going and some trends to look out for in the coming years. I am joined today by Jordi Avellaneda, the Head of Customer Implementation Europe at Maersk, who has more than 20 years experience in the industry. Hi, Jordi, and welcome.
Thanks, Lana, for inviting me. A pleasure.
So in the previous two episodes, we spoke about visibility and resilience, and these being the pillars of not just supply chain, but overall business success. And as an implementation manager, you get firsthand view of supply chains of many of our customers. And what are some of the changes that you are seeing now, how companies are approaching their supply chains versus how they approached it maybe 5 or 10 years ago? And maybe also, how do you expect that this approach will change, let's say, until 2030?
So, yes, thanks a lot, Lana. My team implements supply chain solutions and transportation solutions for customers. And that gives us a good visibility, not just on what is coming and how it's evolving, but also on the reality of the day-to-day. And I think that's an important component that I would like also to highlight. Supply chain has become something cool and fashionable and something most people talk about. And that trend has accelerated after COVID. So COVID marked a before and an after when it comes to supply chain management and to the importance of supply chain management for companies. This importance has surfaced, and now everybody has realized that if supply chains are not resilient, if supply chains are not strong, if supply chains are not visible, then the guts of the world, as I would say, will not work. Global trade will not work. And companies therefore have increased the importance of supply chain within their companies, in the structures. The supply chain function is much more attractive within the customers today than it was 10, 15 years ago, when it was maybe a back office or something that was given for granted. Supply chain management today plays a critical role in the strategies of companies, and board members understand that without a functioning supply chain, the ambitions of the company to grow, to expand, to reach different markets, to increase customer satisfaction won't be achieved. So that's critical for customers today, and we see that will continue to be critical. At the same time, all this transformation that has brought also a lot of investments, particularly in digital, what you mentioned also about supply chain visibility, that's something that comes from the board. But as implementation managers, when we see the reality of the front line, we see that there still exists a gap. There's a gap for 2 or 3 main reasons. I would say the first reason is that some of these transformation and digital implementations have covered maybe 80 to 90% of the needs of the business. And therefore, there's a 10-20% that is still extremely manual. So we operate, even with the largest corporations in the world, with a lot of spreadsheets that would say, okay, we are in 2025. That would be, it sounds incredible. No, it's not incredible. It's the reality of the day-to-day. And I think the second part is that despite there have been a lot of investments, there has been a lack of change management. People are always afraid of changing ways of working. And whenever a new IT system, a new way of working is rolled out, there's always this reluctance. So we see that whereas at board level, senior management level, a lot of programs to enhance supply chain visibility and resilience are being implemented, at the frontline level, there's still reluctance and there's still a willingness to work in the old ways of working. So again, a lot of movement, a lot of trends, a lot of increased importance of supply chain is a role that is much more cooler. And obviously for professionals like me that has been in the business for long, that's incredibly attractive. But at the same time, the reality that we see at the front line is sometimes a bit different, and then therefore there's a need to close that gap.
Thank you, Jordi. So you spoke about the trend of, increasing importance of supply chain role, but what are some of the other disruptive trends that you expect that supply chains will see until 2030?
I would say that moving forward, 2025 to 2030, the importance of supply chain management will stay or will even increase, because we will see more and more disruptions. You just need to open the newspaper any day of the week and you will see wars, tariffs, countries that were friends and now they are foes, logistics disruptions, natural disasters, also a lot of technological disruptions in the supply chain management world. So this will stay. It's like this friend that you thought that was never that important, and you never invited him or her to dinner with the rest of your friends, and suddenly you bring him or her to the dinner table, and he's the focus of all questions, all assessments, and people listen attentively to him or to her. This is what supply chain management is today. So we have a seat at the table, at the dinner table for sure. One of the trends that we see, and obviously we can talk enormously about the amount of technological disruptive new technologies, right? And also the trends towards supply chain diversification. But I think one thing that in my role as implementation manager, I see more and more, especially compared to the past, is that companies start to look at the supply chain end to end. So today, many companies still look at supply chains of what happens at the origin, at the factory, from the factory to the port, at the port, from the port to the other port, and from the airport to the other airport, then from the airport to the warehouse, from the warehouse to the final consumer. And there's a lot of micro optimization being done in these mini supply chains. I would say probably the fashion industry was the first one to look at the end-to-end supply chain, but there's still a lot of large corporations look at this. Okay, who is the best at factory to port transportation in this specific country? Who is the best at this ocean trade, or who is the best at this air freight lane? So companies are looking end to end. So that's like when you enter a car, right, and you have to adjust the seat. You don't adjust the seat, then wait, and then you adjust the steering wheel, and then wait, and then you adjust the rear view and the side view mirrors. Because the optimization of each of them won't optimize your customer experience, what you want to experience as a driver. What you do is just you optimize your seat, at the same time you optimize the steering wheel, then you adjust the mirrors, maybe you go a bit down, a bit up, a bit back. So that's what's happening today. What we want to have is not micro-optimized supply chains, but we want to have end-to-end supply chains that are not the fastest, but are the most reliable, because in the end that will have a positive financial impact. So we have lately we have done some work with a large fashion and sportswear multinational, where they were exactly looking at each and every aspect of the supply chain and optimizing it. And a new supply chain manager was introduced in the company. She was not coming from the industry, but she said, okay, that micro optimization doesn't make sense. How do you see that, Maersk? And then we worked together on this end-to-end optimization, and that has resulted into a reduction of their safety stocks and an increase of the customer satisfaction and an improvement of the reliability of their supply chain. So that has been a big saving for them, and I see that a trend that will increase. So From a supply chain management perspective, that's something that I see and I would like to mention. And then obviously something that I think has to be part of any conversation these days is AI, right? We don't know how AI will impact supply chains. I would say that whereas probably the internet took 30 years to really take off, from the 80s to the 10s, 20s, it really took some time to take off. And obviously previous general purpose technologies took also a lot of time. I would say since the disruption of large language models was probably 5 years ago, the usage and increase is massive, right? So for me to say what will happen with AI in supply chain management in the next 5 years, it's impossible, as AI will be able to work with a lot of data, to do a lot of predictive analysis, to optimize routings. We kind of sense all this, but we don't know the end of that. At the same time, I would like to mention something really practical that we have started doing with AI, and it's something that is really curious, but at the same time it impacts massively most companies. It's a fact that we all mention in supply chain same things with different names. So arrival at port could have a different name, or when the cargo is ready has a different name, or how we measure transit time has a different name, or what accuracy or timeliness has a different name within companies. And that makes it really challenging to manage different customers at the same time within the same language. So we are now starting to use AI to make sure that what we use as a language, as an acronym, as how we name milestones, is adapted to what the customer uses, so that we don't have to change the names every time. It's just we make what we call the standard operating procedures to talk to one company or the other, and the standard operating procedures are automatically updated according to the language of the customer. So that has reduced a lot of a big amount of discussions around what you mean, what I mean, how you measure, how I measure, and at the same time reduces the need for standardization, because then the standard operating procedures and any other operating procedure or discussion with the customer or system adaptation can be immediately adapted to the needs of the customer. So AI will play definitely a role, and it will be extremely disruptive, not just in supply chain, but as we know, in everything that we do these days and moving forward. And I just wanted to mention that small application that I can tell you from an implementation manager perspective that reduces a lot of time, a lot of friction, a lot of delays in some of the discussions we are having with customers.
I think we heard something along similar lines of, smaller improvements bringing big results in our previous episodes. And I like that you also said, supply chain colleagues should be part of the dinner table discussions, right? So what are maybe some other advice for customers that you have, what they should be doing today?
So for us as Maersk, we have our integrator strategy, which means looking at the end-to-end supply chain. So it's not about optimizing every chunk, but it's about optimizing the end-to-end supply chain. And therefore, we as Maersk believe in that vision and have invested in that vision and are ready to support customers go to the end-to-end journey. That doesn't mean that we take and we transport every box and every item in the end-to-end supply chain. That also means that we look at it holistically, and we are able to support the customer in orchestrating the end-to-end supply chain to gain visibility, to gain resilience, and to have higher reliability, because that's in the end what we hear from customers that they want. I think the other element that it's important, I have mentioned a bit in the previous question, is the need for change management. Mm-hmm. For some of these corporations, they have been operating in a way over the years that now, with the disruptions that we have been mentioning, are changing them dramatically. So it's the technological aspect, but it's also, for example, the supply chain diversification, the introductions of resilience programs. And we have the experience of having helped some corporations walk that journey, walk that transformation, and we are also able to tell customers that this is a journey that takes time and takes a lot of communication, a lot of sponsorship, a lot of convincing, a lot of persuasion. So we will be realistic about how to talk about supply chain transformation. So it's important that we highlight that aspect. And at the same time, despite we talk about AI and technology, I think it's important also to mention that we have boots on the ground. For example, if customers want to diversify their supply chains to other countries, other places, we have experience in most of these markets, if not in all. So I think that we can support from Maersk. So looking at the end-to-end supply chain and going to the integrator strategy, that's the first recommendation. I think the second recommendation is around investing in technology, trying technology, but at the same time, making sure that you close the gap. Sit closer to the person that is working with your logistics provider and understand how this person is using the technology that the company has invested in, and how many emails, how many spreadsheets, how many SharePoint sites are still being introduced, because maybe all the partners, all the constellation around the company has not adopted those ways of working. And despite, yes, within the company, we have this ERP or we have this new visibility system, this is not the reality across all the constellations. So it's important to get closer and again to work on this change management. And the last one is just invite AI to the table. Sometimes it's scary, sometimes it's novelty, sometimes it's attractive, but it's important that we invite AI to the table, and we don't think that this is something that is super far away and is super complicated. As I explained in the case of the standard operating procedure discussions, this is something that is close and we can try it. So invite AI to the table.
Thank you, Jordi, for sharing your insights and your view of what the future holds. Maybe in 5 years we can repeat this exercise again, see where we've landed and how AI is being used in the end. And also a big thanks to our listeners for tuning into this and the other 2 episodes. We hope that you enjoyed the ideas and thoughts shared. For some additional insights, please visit our website, maersk.com, our trend map, and logistics insights. We look forward to seeing you again on perhaps a different occasion.